Hello, I'm Professor David Caputo of the Political Science Department at Pace University in New York City. And today, I'd like to welcome you to the continuation of the MOOC. And the third lecture that I'm using today is based on looking ahead after Iowa. Okay, as hard as it is, we need to put Iowa behind us. It's in the history books now. A lot will be written about it, especially depending on what happens over the next several weeks. And as to whether or not it was the bellwether that told us what was going to happen, or whether or not it became immaterial or not. But the point that I want to make now, and this is the day after the Iowa caucuses, is that the hunt now really begins to focus on the hunt for delegates. Candidates are looking for states that are delegate rich and states and caucuses where they think they have the best chance to capture the number of delegates. What this means is all the candidates are now beginning to mathematically try to organize and say, okay, where are we? Where can we pick up delegates? The hope would be to either get the majority before the convention or be in a strong position going into the convention. So New Hampshire is next, and it's important for a variety of reasons. And I think one of the reasons is that under the rules of the New Hampshire primary, and I'll talk more about this just prior to the primary, under the rules of the New Hampshire primary, it is possible for individuals who are registered to vote, but registered to vote as neither party or no party independents. It's possible for them to register for that day only for that political party in whose primary they want to vote in. So you can have a large number of independents come into the Republican race or come into the Democratic race. And they can have a great deal of impact on this. We know that New Hampshire is less conservative, even though it is a New England state, less conservative than Iowa is. It doesn't have the large number of evangelicals in it. We know that it has a party affinity. Normally, candidates who are approximate from states near their borders win, so everyone assumes Bernie Sanders will run very well here. It shows that he has a very strong lead at this point. So New Hampshire is important, but looking ahead beyond New Hampshire, okay, it gets more complicated, and I would argue it becomes less exclusive in the sense that there's less media attention. If you watched any of the returns last night, all the major networks, all the cable people had crews in Des Moines, Iowa, and around the state of Iowa covering things. They will not do that after New Hampshire. They'll do some of it in New Hampshire, but not nearly that much, because we're getting more into more traditional type things. So let's look ahead at a couple of the dates afterwards. South Carolina has a primary for Republicans on Saturday, the 20th of February. Interesting that they have a primary on Saturday, but they do. 10 days or so, 11 days after New Hampshire. Clearly, if you come out of New Hampshire with some momentum, you're in good shape in South Carolina. Democratic caucuses in Nevada are also on Saturday the 20th. These are non-binding, however, but important symbolically. Tuesday the 23rd, you have the Republican Nevada caucus, and then Saturday the 27th, you have the South Carolina presidential primary. Then after that, you get into the mega primary dates, the 1st and the 15th of March, where you have over 15 states either having primaries or caucuses, and over nearly 1,000 delegates being selected here. Clearly, the 1st of March and the 15th of March are going to be the critical set of primaries and caucuses for all the candidates and all the parties. And I think after the 15th, it will become much clearer whether or not you're going to have a contested nomination or not. Come back and talk about this a little later. But what I want to talk about right now is the candidates and their campaigns right now are being forced to make a series of both tactical and strategic decisions. So for instance, if you're Bernie Sanders and you've raised $20 million in January and you hope to raise that amount, if not more, in February, seems like a lot of money. It is, but how do you spend that money? Do you concentrate on South Carolina and Nevada and March 1st, or are you looking further out in terms of how you're going to spend the money? He has a finite amount of money. How's he going to spend it? Same way with the Clinton campaign, and all the campaigns are trying to ascertain this. They also have to make another strategic decision as to where do they spend their time. Do they try to get to all the states, or do they only get to the states where they think they have a chance to do well? This is a strategic decision, and it can be very important. For instance, Minnesota caucuses in March. And the assumption is that Bernie Sanders will do very well there. But if Mrs. Clinton is not active in the caucus debate and build up and so forth, it weakens her in Minnesota in the fall if she ends up to be the nominee. So you're making strategic decisions not only for this go around, for the nominating process, but also for the electoral process. How do these organizations make the decisions? In most cases, campaign manager will sit with staff, they'll try to plan out, try to figure out what it's going to cost, and so forth. And the candidate will then either agree or disagree, or the candidate might be in the middle of the planning. So another key thing they're looking at is how do they raise more funds? Okay? Bernie Sanders has said he will not take any PAC money. He does not want a super PAC formed on his behalf. Okay, super PAC can be formed without his approval. One could be forthcoming. That could be helpful, not in terms of direct contributions to the campaign, but in terms of running ads and other things. The other candidates are also trying to figure out where they can raise money. Clearly, one of the key decisions to be made perhaps in the next few days or weeks is what a conservative Republican group of supporters are trying to decide as to where they want to put the bulk of their money. Could be in the tens of millions of dollars through their PAC that they have. I'll talk about the super PACs at another lecture in just a few weeks. So the longer term view is one that I would think most of the campaigns are looking at. Okay, sure, they're concerned about New Hampshire, they're concerned about South Carolina and Nevada, but they also have to be looking beyond. Where do they concentrate their resources? Where do they concentrate their time? These are very, very important decisions. Okay, now you also need to understand that these decisions are so important that you may not win the campaign based on them, but you very well could lose them. If you end up, for instance, if you use all your resources up by the 15th of March but haven't won, and you have very little resources left, then it's going to be very difficult for you going forward. Or if you save and plan a little differently, saying if you come to the conclusion this is going to be a long race, well into May even, or even into June, or even to the convention, you spend your money differently. And I think this is what both the Republican and Democratic candidates have to be deciding at this point. Very little media coverage on this. It would be good if they would try to do some interviews with party leadership and campaign leadership as to what their plans are for the long haul. You can get some idea about this by looking at the different states and seeing how many people they have working for them there, what they're doing in terms of volunteer support and so forth. So this is a key aspect that often gets lost. Okay, often gets lost in the emphasis that the media has on reporting things as a horse race. Thank you.